Good morning and welcome, everybody. It is Sunday, April 12th, 2026, and this is Sunday Fun Day from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. Thank you all so much for being here. Wendy Joan is juiced. Lindsay Bay is juiced. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Full Throated Motion's pretty juiced. Hello, Ann Potter and Crystal Anderson and Helen the Scottish Llama, Bess Nancy, Little Miss Red Velvet. God, it's so good to see so many of you. So many familiar names and faces. June Sidlauskas. I always say it wrong, June. I'm sorry. I will get it here, eventually one of these years. Crystal Anderson, Nate Dogg is in the house. Good to see all of you. Welcome back. Welcome back for another fun-filled Sunday Fun Day. And welcome to everybody who's new. If you are new, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Joshua Ritter. I'm a former prosecutor with the LA District Attorney's Office. I was there for just over 10 years before I left to go into private practice as a criminal defense attorney. And we started this channel, Courtroom Confidential, with the mission statement of presenting to you both sides of the courtroom, both sides of the story, both sides of the issues. And we hope that we do that. And this is a show that we call Sunday Fun Day, mainly because it's on Sunday, where we take your questions that you've left us voicemails on throughout the week, and we're now going to answer them live. And there's a bunch of good ones this week because we had to skip last week. Hope you all had a good Sunday off. So we had to double the amount this week, and I tried to get to as many of them as I possibly could. A lot of them, you were all kind of asking questions about the same stuff. So if I didn't answer your question directly, I'm sure I answered it, or I hope that I'm answering it through maybe somebody else's question. Hello to everybody who is on Facebook and on X. If you are there, send us a little hi. Let us know where you're from. We'd love to hear from you. Life, Love, and True Crime says, hey, y'all. Stay to the end. We do have some announcements. There's some fun stuff coming up, including guests that we have planned for tomorrow that I want you to hear about. But for right now, take a deep breath. You've made it. It's Sunday. It's the end of the week, at the beginning of a new one, depending on how you look at it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Like this if you haven't already, and share this with anybody that you think might enjoy it. But let's jump into our questions and see who's got us kicking off the week this week. Here we go.
Hi, Josh and the CC crew. This is Carly from Napa Valley, California. First time caller, long time listener. I wanted to get your thoughts on the mental health diversion PC 1001.36. I am now involved in a case that is a felony case, and it might not go through to become a felony because this person might get off scot-free and his record might be wiped clean because of this mental health diversion situation. And it's going all over California. And I want to get your thoughts on that because if these people, these criminals that should have felonies, go through this program, it's wiped clean their records, and then they turn around and they kill people, and it's proven all over California, and they have no record from the past, but then they turn around and they end up doing these criminal acts again and again and again. So anyways, as a lawyer, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, especially as a defense attorney, because in my situation,
Oh, Carly, I'm sorry that you got cut off there at the end, but great question. Let's put you on the map. Carly from Napa Valley, California, probably sitting somewhere on a vineyard listening to Courtroom Confidential, listening to Sunday Fun Day. If you're here, Carly, thank you so much for the question. And it's kind of a controversial one. I'm glad that you asked this. This is a really interesting topic. We're talking about mental health diversion. This is a new, relatively new, couple years old law that was passed here in California that has received a fair amount of criticism and praise. As a criminal defense attorney, I'm going to be upfront with you that I've used it. Absolutely, I've used it, sometimes to great success too. Here's the way that it works. California's legislatures have there's this school of thought that what are we doing locking up people who are not really criminals, but people who've really got mental health problems. And so in an effort to try to keep the prison system from becoming just a mental health institution, they have said, listen, if you have committed a crime and you have a diagnosed mental health issue, and that mental health issue was a substantial factor in your commission of the crime, and you can benefit from treatment, we're going to allow you to take part in this program called mental health diversion. The case doesn't go away, but for 2 years, you have to go through fairly intensive treatment, and you're on essentially probation to the court. And that person has to abide by their mental health treatment. Sometimes that involves a live-in facility. It certainly involves weekly therapy. Perhaps the judge can order you to take all of your medication, and you have to check in with the judge. And if you don't satisfy all of those, the judge can kick you off of it, and then you go right back to criminal court. And then you're looking at going to a trial. If you're successful, though, if the defendant, I should say, rather than speaking to one of us, if the defendant is successful in this, it's true. It goes away. The case against them is dismissed, and they move on with their life. And so many people are going, wait, pump the brakes. I'm all for the idea of not filling the prisons with people who've got mental health issues, but what about somebody who committed a very serious crime? Well, certain crimes don't qualify. There are certain enumerated crimes that we're just not going to allow to take advantage of this program. But there are other crimes, surprisingly crimes that you would think shouldn't qualify, that do qualify. But judges realizing that are sometimes very skeptical, and there are opportunities for them to not allow this. And one of the biggest ways they can kind of stop this is by saying, well, yes, you have a mental health issue. Yes, it was a substantial factor. But 3, I don't think there's any treatment that can help you. And so therefore, I think the best thing to do is to make sure that you're locked up somewhere, because what California doesn't have is locked down mental health facilities. And that's kind of a thing that they can go to. But I've also seen judges grant it in situations where people think it should not be granted. It is fantastic when you've got a person who, let's say, has never committed a crime in their life, has some sort of mental break, and does then go out and commit a crime. I think it is a good way of saying, well, listen, this is an anomaly in this person's life. It was obviously caused by this mental health issue. This is not a fledgling, a burgeoning criminal here. This is a person who made a horrible mistake that probably would not have been taken place were it not for their mental health issues. If we address those mental health issues, can we get them back into society? So I realize a lot of people are going to have strong feelings either way on this whole thing. It's interesting. California is trying it out, but I agree with you too. Like, listen, at the same time, we're wondering, why are people out committing great crimes of violence where you had opportunities to stop them in the past? And why didn't we? Well, one of the reasons, at least in California, that's being pointed to is that you have programs like this. So Carly, I appreciate your frustration. I also hope that you and me explaining it, kind of understand why it might exist. Maybe it's one of those things that just needs to be retooled a little bit. But thank you so much, Carly from Napa Valley, for kicking us off this morning. Very, very nice of you. Debbie Harrow's in the house, everybody. She says, I finally made it. Missed all of you. Fun time. And she's super juiced. And thank you so much, Debbie, for the very generous super sticker. We appreciate you for getting everybody, for all the support and getting us all going this morning. And to Alice, wait a minute, Alicia Rockland, thank you so much for the super sticker. And to Maureen from Monterey. She's been a member for 11 months. Happy crewversary, Maureen. Happy Sunday Fun Day. Absolutely the best program in true crime. Oh, and 3 trophies for us. Wow. D. Bullard. See, I was in such a good mood. 1%. Oh, the Crafty RN, 60%. Fail. YT Hazel, barely passing, 73%. Little Miss Red Velvet, 16%. You're repeating the session. But Nana a 4, thank you for bringing me back with a very kind super sticker. All right. Where are we off to next here? Great question from Carly. Okay, here's where we're going to next. Let me get myself together here.
Hi, Josh and CC crew. This is Kathy from Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo, calling here from Bergen County at the PetSmart. Listen, this guy with no arms and no legs who got arrested, the quadruple amputee, how did they handcuff him? I have to know. What do you put the handcuffs on? How does that even work? Is there a special section of the jail for people who are differently abled? Okay, I hope you can do some research and find out the answers. I stay 100% juice.
Ah, see, Kathy from Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo. I hope she's here this morning. Kathy, always with the hard-hitting questions, always finding the issues that others don't look into. First of all, calling from Bergen County at the PetSmart. So I hope you were able to geolocate that PetSmart, Kaylin, in New Jersey there. Thank you so much, Kathy. Big fan of Kathy's show, Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo. If you haven't checked it out, do yourself a favor and check it out. She's asking about Dayton Webber. This case is wild. They're all wild, but this one's got an extra sprinkling of wild on top of it. Dayton is a quadruple amputee, and his story starts out a hero story, okay? From the age of 10 months, he lost both arms and both legs because he had streptococcus pneumonia blood infection. Yeah, I was able to say that in one try. Very proud of myself. Despite all of that, he achieved great things, and including great things, physically. He became a professional cornhole player. I have been blessed, and I'm thankful to God that I have all my limbs, and I can't play cornhole to save my life. This guy became a professional despite all of his disabilities. However, Dayton also has a bit of a anger management issue. And the story goes that on March 22nd of this year in La Plata, Maryland, and apparently this was a friend of his. He got into it with a friend of his while driving. He pulls a gun and shoots his friend. He's apparently driving, is the way I understand this even. He's driving, no arms, no legs, still, and able to do that, and drive and shoot somebody. And he ends up shooting the front passenger, who is his friend, apparently, Bradrick Michael Wells, who loses his life. Very, very tragic. Now he's looking at first-degree murder, might go to prison for the rest of his life. How in the world can a person drive, and how in the world can a person shoot a gun without arms and legs? Well, Dayton may have provided the prosecution with the best evidence of how he could possibly have done that himself. Here's a video that he posted online. Oh, there's audio, I think, to go along with it, but you're not missing much. I don't think he's actually talking, but yeah, that is a 9mm gun. And he's both reloading and firing it off. So that is how that could have taken place. The answer to your question, though, your hard-hitting investigative question, Kathy, how did they put handcuffs on him? I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know if they even did. I don't know if he's considered all that much of a flight risk for the police. I'm not trying to be overly comical with that statement. I imagine they probably just strapped him into the vehicle and figured that was probably enough as far as they were concerned. But very good question. The answer is I don't know. I don't know if they actually had some sort of restraint that they put on him. We'll see, too, when he comes to court under what restraints he's in. I imagine what they're going to do is just probably have him strapped into a wheelchair, but really sad case on top of it. I mean, I don't know. He was apparently featured even on the Today Show at one point. It's like, here's this person that you can kind of use as an example of not allowing, you know, the lemons that life has handed you to get you down, and you can still achieve great things. And now he might be going to prison for a very long time. So thank you, Kathy. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo, calling from the PetSmart in New Jersey. Appreciate you. She Bear TC says, can't believe I caught alive. Living in Hungary makes it a bit difficult sometimes. Lovely crew here. Happy to join. Thank you so much, She Bear. Send us a voice message. Would love to put Hungary on the map and appreciate your support and generosity. Just a crazy Jen says, don't mean to be a downer. My mom, an avid watcher, oh my God, was killed by a man going 139 miles per hour. My lawyer isn't doing much. Do I switch lawyers midstream? I'm very sorry. Just a crazy Jen. What I will say is email me at, what is it? Info. Tiffany's going to put the email so that you have it. Email me, and if there is someone that I might be able to recommend to you, I will certainly do that. But I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry for the trouble that you're going through. I don't, you know, obviously I don't know much more about it. There you go. info@viafortunamedia.com. Please email us. Thank you so much, though, for sharing that with us. All right. And then finally, Gina Gilmore, who's also a zookeeper, thank you so much, says, my husband worked with criminally insane inmates at Patton State Hospital, including a 13-year-old girl who killed her family members. Good grief. It's going to be one of those mornings, everybody. That's all right. I'm still as Kathy says, still always 100% Jews. All right. Let me get us moving along here to our next question. Where are we off to? Let me just make sure I'm doing this right. And I think I am. All right, here we go.
Hi, Michelle from Asheville, North Carolina here. I'm curious, before a trial starts, how much does a defendant usually know about the case against them? Do they see all the evidence and understand the strategy ahead of time? Thanks.
Michelle from Asheville, North Carolina. Let's put you on the map. Thank you so much for calling in, Michelle. This is a great question. What does the defendant know before a trial starts? The answer is it should be everything. Like, you have to remember, it's the people versus defendant. It's the people versus Josh Ritter. Josh Ritter is the one who's entitled to all the evidence. I realize that we hand it all over to their attorney, and the attorneys are the ones handling it, and the attorneys are the ones working with it. But that attorney has not only an ethical obligation, not only a bar card obligation, but a constitutional obligation to make sure that their client has seen and has access to all the evidence. It's their case. They're the ones on trial. They're the ones that could be going to prison for the rest of their life. So the answer is, if they're not having all of the information, if it's not all being shared with them, that is, you guys ask about this all the time. When does ineffective assistance of counsel ever arise? That is squarely when it arrives. If a defendant can say, I didn't even see half of the evidence. My attorney never shared it with me. My attorney never took the time to visit me in jail and share with me all the evidence against me. That could be a major problem, because they're supposed to be making informed decisions. And how could you possibly do that if you don't have your attorney sharing all that information with you? So thank you, Michelle, for bringing that up. But yeah, they've got everything. Michelle from Asheville, North Carolina, putting North Carolina on the map. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Good morning, CC crew, Ritter family, and all. This is Jan in Springfield, Illinois. And my question is, why don't they ever have a professional on the stand as a witness of how to do CPR? And I'm going to use Kouri Richins as an example. I know they've had 911 calls in the past where they're playing about the how to do CPR, but it never sounds like anybody's out of breath and how strenuous it is. So why don't they ever call a professional in and talk about how CPR is done?
Jan from Springfield, Illinois. Let's put you on the map. Jan, I got to tell you, you brought me on a journey with this question, because at first I thought, where is she going with this? This doesn't make sense to me. I don't get, why would we need to hear from a CPR expert? I feel like we can all kind of understand what that involves. You know, we don't really expect people to know how to do CPR, but Jan makes an excellent point. If a defendant, a la Kouri Richins, is claiming that she's calling and trying to resuscitate her husband, who she found tragically cold in bed, and she's being given instructions on how to conduct CPR, could you call someone to say, listening to this call, it does not sound like someone performing CPR. Someone performing CPR would be far more out of breath. Someone performing CPR would be taking far more time to do it. Interesting. I like that a lot. Really creative thinking. Here's my thoughts on it. I think you would get a lot of pushback from the defense saying, yes, you can be an expert on CPR if you're watching it take place in front of you. But now you're not asking that person to be an expert on CPR, but also an expert on what would a person physically sound like performing CPR. And that's where a judge might feel that's a bridge too far. I agree with you, though. Should they be out of breath? I don't even know if you need to call an expert just on that. You could probably ask the EMT, hey, when you're performing CPR, how physically, what's the word I'm looking for? How physically intensive is that? Can it be exhausting? Would you expect to be out of breath? Things like that, and not necessarily have to connect the dots right then and there. And then in closing argument, say, ladies and gentlemen, you listened to that 911 call. Was she out of breath? Well, then you also heard from the EMT tell you that you would be out of breath, and just kind of make the argument yourself. Ann Potter says, as a retired respiratory therapist, COR is exhausting. So I'm going to volunteer Ann Potter to all those defense attorneys out there prosecutors out there. Next time you have a case where somebody's saying they perform CPR, Ann Potter can testify to just how exhausting it can be. Thank you, Jan. Like I said, kind of brought us on a journey there. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Debbie Haro, back again, curious, still trying to keep up with the Guthrie case. Brian Enton is back. I sent him juiced comments. He probably doesn't know what that is about, but I told him to ask you. Good. Keep him confused with the juice boxes. Any new thoughts from you? Guthrie. I don't even know if we're talking. I don't know if anybody asked a question about it today, but I will say the latest was that they received, or TMZ received, new ransom notes or new notes saying that I have information. Please send me. I think it's now down to half a Bitcoin. I think if they keep waiting, the price will continue to go down. I will say on that front, I think all of that is nonsense. I think it's complete fraud. I really do. Now, the FBI is taking it seriously, as well they should. They're investigating it as well they should. But I really don't think I think these are all fraudsters trying to take advantage of a nightmarish situation. As far as the actual case, and are they any closer to finding her, the latest I've heard is that they've actually pulled back resources, that the field office in Phoenix for the FBI has returned to their offices, that resources are being put back to their original assignments. Everybody is starting to treat this as a case with no hot leads. Doesn't mean there aren't leads, doesn't mean there aren't plenty of tips that they're still working through, doesn't mean that they're not still trying to hunt down where that backpack and when it was purchased, the gun, the mask, other items. They've got plenty to work on, but whether or not any of that is proving to be fruitful, it doesn't sound like it, at least from where we stand right now. Same with the DNA. They could be going currently through that IGG process, and we just haven't been informed of it. So believe me, Debbie, if there's anybody who's curious to know if there's updates on this case, I'm towards the top of that list. And I probably will tell you if there are updates, and they are, you know, really kind of groundbreaking updates, you'll be hearing from me, and you'll probably be hearing from me from Tucson. So thank you so much, Debbie, again for the super chat. And thank you, Heather Coopersmith, for the super sticker. All right. Where are we at here? See, I was doing so good, and now I feel like I did lose my space. Let's get, I see where we're at. Here we go.
Hi, Josh and CC crew. It's Hayley Moo from Cornwall, England. I had a question about extradition. Recently, a murder that happened back in the 90s has been solved by DNA, and they arrested Floyd Parrott for the murders. He wants to fight the extradition, and I just wondered, in what case would he win that, and they wouldn't send him back to Texas? I don't really understand the extradition laws. Thank you.
Haley from Cornwall, England. Let's put you on the map there. I just was watching something about Cornwall, and they were showing like pictures of it, and it looks incredible. Really, really beautiful looking part of England there. So thank you so much, Haley, for calling in, putting Cornwall on the map. Floyd Parrott, this was one that I had not been aware of, had not been following. So thank you for bringing this up for us. He's 64 years old now, but this is about a case from 1990. So in 1990, in Houston, Texas, August 23rd, this was considered a lover's lane shooting. Remember, for a while there, this was kind of what, you know, a big kind of fear amongst people, is that, you know, two people in a car parked off somewhere, canoodling, I think is the term, and then somebody comes up and shoots them. Well, in this case, they were stabbed to death. It was Garland, otherwise known as Andy Atkinson, 22 years old, along with his, I suppose, girlfriend, Cheryl Henry, also 22 years old. Lovely looking people. Garland was found tied to a tree. Cheryl had apparently been SA'd. Really horrible, horrific case. Stabbed in the throat, both of them. Goes unsolved for many, 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 many years. Then in March of this year, they make an arrest in Lincoln, Nebraska, based on a tip from 2025 regarding another SA. So apparently someone makes a tip that this man, Parrott, may have committed another crime. Based on the DNA from that other crime, they can link him to another SA in 1996, and through the CODIS system, we're able to match him to DNA from this case. This CODIS stuff is incredible. We're really living in this world now where CODIS, I think, is starting to have its golden age of being able to solve these crimes. So they've been able to DNA match him to the crime scene. And when I say DNA, this is more than, without getting a little too graphic about this, more than just, you know, his finger palm print found here or there, like DNA that definitely matches him to a crime having taken place. And now he's been arrested, and they're going to extradite him. And you're right, Haley, he is fighting extradition. Does anyone ever win? Rarely. Extradition, especially between the states, extradition makes a little bit more sense when you're talking about from another country. Now you're talking about treaties and agreements, and you know, whether or not that home country can have some sort of say on whether or not that person is extradited, depending on what the country requesting extradition is planning on doing with that person. When you're talking about interstate, going from Nebraska to Texas, it's much more pro forma. It's much more you send us a warrant, we sign off on the warrant, we send the guy to you. But the reason this exists is, this is the United States of America, where each state is considered a independent sovereign. And there are sometimes differing laws. And when you went way back, kind of Civil War type era, they might have disagreement on what was a crime and what wasn't, and whether or not they would agree to extradite person. Like I said, in these modern times we live in, pretty much just a matter of paperwork. But it can come down to, one of the biggest things is ID. And I've actually handled a case like this. I had a client who was arrested here on a warrant out of state, and it wasn't him. And so we had to spend some time clarifying that they got the wrong person, right name, actually correct name, correct year of birth, just wrong date of birth. And we had to go through the process of clearing that all up. And we did fight extradition and won in that sense. And mainly it wasn't like a fight. They were just like, oh, this isn't the right guy. Thank you for clarifying. We're going to let him go. Or the other way you could fight it is if you somehow find that the arrest warrant is legally insufficient. Again, the circumstances in which this happened are incredibly rare. So thank you, Haley. He's going to go back to Texas. He's going to go back to Texas, and he's going to face Texas justice, which is, you don't want to be on the business end of Texas justice. Thank you so much, Haley from Cornwall, England, for putting Cornwall on the map and asking an excellent question. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Gossip rumor, you're late. We already read your question. Watching on 2 times to get caught up. Well, you watch it on 2 times. Twice the speed, but I feel like you're missing a lot of the nuance. But we're glad that you're here and you asked an excellent question. So I hope that you get an answer to that. GRI, Kathy from GRI. Hope you made it out of the PetSmart successfully. Thank you for the question. All right. Deep breath, Ritter. Where are we at here? Hold on. All right.
Hi, Josh and everyone. This is Jim from the Marshall Islands again. I have a question about the Gerhardt Konig trial in Hawaii. I was watching you on Wednesday, and you had a really interesting insight about why this even went to trial. You said you thought, it's so obvious he's going to get convicted. It's just overwhelming evidence. And you said, I think this guy actually went to trial because he wanted to whine about the fact that his wife cheated on him, quote unquote cheated. As a defense lawyer, how much pressure do you put on a client to say, you know what, this is a doomed, you are going to lose. Let's just get a deal. Or do you just okay, he wants to do this. He's paying the bills. We can do it. Just curious about how much pressure lawyers typically give to their clients, when their case is just absolutely hopeless.
Jim, my friend, one of my dudes calling from the Marshall Islands. Always love to hear from you because we get to put the Marshall Islands on the map. Thank you so much, Jim. Talking about Gerhardt Konig. Well, talking about Gerhardt Konig, but really talking about defense attorneys and whether or not and how much pressure they put on their clients about going to trial or avoiding trial or taking a plea or what. The answer is all the time. This is amongst all my friends and colleagues who are defense attorneys, this is probably one of the biggest topics of conversation, is trying to convince a client, that they need to take a plea deal and that the plea deal that they're being offered is a good one. And I will tell you this, that has nothing to do with whether or not I feel like I'm a good trial attorney or whether or not I feel like I can put on a trial. I'm not trying to sound like I'm bragging here, though it's going to sound like that, but I think I'm a hell of a good trial attorney. But I can only work with the facts that I have, right? If you're caught on videotape and you've got your DNA there and 6 eyewitnesses saw you do it and you confess to the police, what kind of a tap dance do you expect me to do in court? But there's this itis that falls over defendants sometimes where they feel like they got to fight this and they got to go to court and they got to go to trial. And sometimes I think that's people getting in their ears. Sometimes I think it's psychologically they can't accept the idea that this is not going to end well for them. You got to realize too that people, who find themselves in these situations, this is usually not the first time that they've made a silly mistake in their life. And I say silly with quotes around it. Gerhardt's interesting because he probably never committed a crime in his life. I can't imagine he would have qualified to become a doctor and get a license if he had. But most people have been, living on the edge, living on the fringe for some time, and now it caught up with them, and they can't fathom the idea of actually having to pay the piper. But there are defense attorneys who are not like myself and who are out there just gunning for trials. Yeah, let's set this for trial. I have never viewed that this way, and that there are people who make a very good living being that kind of a defense attorney. Because some people want that. Yeah, this guy's going to fight for me and he's going to go to court. Well, you know what else? You know what he's not going to do? Go to prison for you. I realize that I'm doing all the fighting, but if I lose, you're the one who's going off to prison. So I take that responsibility very seriously. And so I tell clients up front, hey, by the way, if this ends up going to trial, that's because we have exhausted every other option. Trial should be the last and worst option for you. Rarely do I have a case walk through the door where there is some smoking gun piece of evidence that I think makes this person innocent. And by the way, I'm not going to save that for trial. If I've got you on a plane at the time the murder was committed, I'm going to go to the DA with the plane ticket, right? I'm not going to save that for some gotcha moment at trial. We're going to try to get you out from this mess as quickly as we can. But like I said, let me give a little piece of free advice to everybody. First of all, don't commit crimes. But if you're going to, and you need to hire a lawyer, don't go with the guy who's like, yeah, we're taking this to trial. This DA's office is all upside down and sideways. We're going to take this to trial. That person will hold your hand all the way to the prison doors and then say bye-bye and thank you for the check. So to answer your question, Jim, more directly, rather than the little rant I went on, they put pressure on them all the time. But end of the day, it's their decision. And a defense attorney might be able to say, if you want to take this to trial, you need to hire another lawyer. But they're certainly going to say, if you take this to trial, you're going to need to cut me another check. But if that's what you want to do, have your day in court, which I think is what Gerhardt did. I think he wanted to have his day in court. And I think he wanted to tell the world how wronged he was by Ariel. Well, how did that work out for you, Gerhardt? Not all that good is the answer. All right, let's keep it rolling here. First of all, let me thank Canine Catherine so much for the very kind and generous super chat. Says, welcome to the mod squad, Bess Nancy. You're the best. Nice choice, Courtroom Confidential. Yes, welcome aboard, Bess Nancy. Jude, thank you so much for supporting the mods with coffees today. I appreciate you, Jude. And Michigan Alicia, thank you for supporting the mods with coffees. Keeping the mod squad awake with coffee this morning. Appreciate you. All right. Let's keep it rolling. Where are we off to? Let me just make sure I'm doing my math correctly. I am.
Hey y'all, this is Sarcasm from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I'm still a little confused on the Letecia Stauch retrial. I had asked on Saturday when Scott was on about her admission to committing the crime coming into the new trial, because the first trial she pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, effectively admitting guilt, effectively admitting that she killed this poor child. Can that come into the new trial? So her new attorney, Josh Tolini, has indicated that they are going to go with NGRI again. However, there's always the chance that he'll change his strategy. So can her formal former plea, admitting guilt by reason of insanity, can that come in? I'm so confused. I need to know if because she effectively admitted to doing this. I don't know. I'm so confused. Yada, yada, yada. I hope everybody has a great week. Happy Sunday Fun Day.
Sarcasm. You sound down. We're going to get you out of that funk. And now I think I understand your questions. First of all, let me put you on the map. Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Yes, I remember you asking me about this, and I thought that I had answered it, but now I realize the question you were in fact asking. So first of all, to catch everybody up, this piece of work right here is Letecia Stauch. She was convicted for murdering it's her stepson, right? I don't want to get the facts wrong here. Her stepson. And during her first trial, she had pled not guilty, but she had pled not guilty. Not that she had pled guilty and then she's insane. She pled not guilty by reason of insanity. Kind of an important point for what we're talking about right now. But she was found guilty and they did not find that she was insane. Now, because of a juror issue, she's going to get herself a new trial. And we've talked a little bit about that juror issue and why it really just boils down to poorly written law there by their legislator, if you're going to point the finger at anybody. And the Supreme Court in that state has decided, yes, she deserves to get another trial. Sarcasm's question was, can her admissions of guilt come in at the new trial? So let me first answer about admissions. If she admitted to police, that's coming in. That will have a new evidentiary hearing, but that's coming in as a statement of a defendant. If she testified and admitted to it, that's coming in. If she told a therapist and they used that interview, that's coming in. But if you're trying to say that her plea of not guilty by reason of insanity is in effect an admission, that is not going to come in. Her prior plea is not evidence, and it's certainly not considered an admission for the purposes of evidence. I get where you're going with this. Isn't she, in fact, effectively admitting she did it if she pled not guilty by reason of insanity? I understand where you're going with that, but that's not how the law is going to view it. In fact, she could turn around right now and say, no, I never did this. That's a weird thing, right? She could change defense completely. As long as she didn't testify, she can, well, even if she did testify, she could try it, but she's not bound to this prior plea of NGI. She could turn around this time and say, you got the wrong person. My new defense is I have an alibi, or my new defense is you can't prove that I did it. And it has nothing to do with insanity. She is not, like I said, bound by her prior plea or defense strategy. She's going with that same strategy. And part of that strategy is going to be, I imagine, her defense team conceding things, but it doesn't amount to admissions. So I hope that clears things up for you, Sarcasm. Excellent question, though. I just, I don't think I had quite appreciated where you were going with it the first time around. So thank you for asking again. All right, let's keep it rolling. I feel like we're moving at a very healthy clip here. Are you guys having a good time? Where have we gone? We've gone to Fort Bragg. We've gone to the Marshall Islands. We've gone to Cornwall, England. We've gone to a PetSmart in New Jersey. We've been all over the place. Great question so far. And now I lost my place. No, I didn't. I found it. Here we go.
Hi, Josh. This is Maureen from Monterey. I have two questions, both of them prompted by the trial of Gerhardt Konig, but they really are general questions that I think can pertain to any criminal trial. But by the way, did you know that Gerhardt Konig has testicles? I mean, who knew? I was really surprised. Anyway, the first question is this. Why do prosecutors choose not to put on rebuttal cases? I thought they should have in this case. I would have called Ariel and maybe Emil back to the stand at least, because Konig's stories were so preposterous. And I think I thought they should have done that in Kouri Richins' trial as well. The second question is this. I know that attorneys go over their clients' testimonies beforehand, and they say things like, always tell the truth and just answer the question that's asked. Don't, go on and on about other things. But do they also do that during breaks and lunch? Do they tell the client they're doing well, or they should do this differently or that differently? I've always wondered that. Thanks, Josh. You are the best.
Oh, Maureen, you're the best. Let's put Monterey on the map there. Great questions. I like both of these. So let me answer the second part of this first. We're talking about kind of general trial issues, but we'll use the Gerhardt Konig case as an example. But what do attorneys tell witnesses during the break? You've got to be very careful about this. And I learned this very early on. Because one, there is no attorney-client privilege between a prosecutor and the witnesses, right? So the witness can't say, I don't have to tell you that. If the defendant is on the stand and they discuss something with their attorney, that can't be asked about. That's attorney-client privilege. But a witness or a witness for the defense or the prosecution, all of that's fair game. What are they talking to the attorney about? So because of that, yes, you might tell a witness, both as the defense and the prosecution, you might tell a witness, you're doing great. However, I need you to be more clear about A, B, and C. Or I need you to calm down and not worry about the questions you're being asked by the other side. I'm going to be able to clear that up. That was most of what I would do. Or I would say, hey, you told me at another time X, Y, and Z. Am I not asking the right question? Because now I can't get you to say X, Y, and Z. Things like that. But I would always tell them, when you go back on the stand, the first question you're asked on cross might be, what did you talk about with the prosecutor during the break? And I want you to tell them, and that's what I'm telling you right now, that I'm telling you to tell the truth, because that's all I want from you. And I would always love when I had played this perfectly, because it would be, what did you talk about with the prosecutor over the break? Were you discussing this with the prosecutor? What did you talk about with the prosecutor? And everybody, is this going to be some gotcha moment? Is the prosecutor trying to coach this witness? Is he trying to get him to say something? And they would go, he told me to tell the truth. And I'd be like, zing, over in my seat. So you got to be careful about what you tell them. And if you are coaching them, that could come out. And I've done it the other way too, where I've asked the witness, what'd you talk about with the defense attorney? And they freeze up. They look over at the defense attorney and go, can I say this? And I go, you can answer the question. What did they tell you? And sometimes it will be something awful. You know what I mean? Okay, so that is the second part of your question. But then as far as rebuttal cases, there's a lot of different strategy on this. I have found that, first of all, it's very rare to put on a rebuttal case. And I have found that by the time you get to the end, you're feeling done. You feel like the jury feels like it's done. Unless there was something brought up in the defense case that has never been answered or addressed in your case in chief, like in the Gerhardt Konig case. Yeah, he talked about things on the stand, but that was already kind of addressed through the testimony of Ariel and the son ahead of time. Could he have recalled them for these small issues? Perhaps. But then you got to think about, too, are you drawing too much attention to something the defendant may have said or something that the defense may have put on during their case? Are you highlighting it by trying to rebut it? And if you don't rebut it effectively, does that open up more opportunity for the defense to muddy the waters? I think that the better strategy is not to call a rebuttal case unless you feel like there is just some issue that has never been addressed and needs to be addressed, and it's a lingering question out there that needs to be answered for the jury before you go back. But it's rare. And in fact, as I'm sitting here right now, I'm not saying I've never done it, but no case that comes to mind where I've done a rebuttal case. They don't happen all that often. You see them maybe in longer cases because there's just more issues. You know what? Now I do know. I did call a detective one time back onto the stand, and that's because it was easy enough. The detective had been in court the entire trial, and I just put him back on there to be like, no, that person lied about X, Y, and Z. Quick and easy. Thank you so much, Maureen, for asking the question. Hope that answered that for you. Debbie Haro, thank you so much for supporting the mods with coffees. Appreciate all your support, Debbie. And Best Nancy, thank you so much for your support of Courtroom Confidential by gifting a membership. And Heather Coopersmith, thank you so much for the super sticker. All right. Let's keep it rolling here.
Hi there, Josh, Tiff, and fam. Happy Easter. Sundays sure aren't as fun without you, but I'm glad you've had at least a day to take off with your family and hope everyone is feeling better. I'm actually calling to see if you've kept up with any of the Laura Owens saga over the last couple months. I know it's enough to be a full-time job in and of itself, so I completely understand if not. But if so, I'd love to hear your thoughts. We've got her trying to pull the bankruptcy card, only to get in even more trouble, more lies exposed. And I guess the IRS attorney is on her now. Then there was the plea deal that she was quickly followed by her getting a new lawyer. So people are speculating that she wouldn't take anything that would require her to admit wrongdoing, even though Clayton actually was upset about the plea deal, saying it was too good. And then there's the only lawyer who would play her games and all the trouble he's gotten into lately. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. So yeah, I just love to hear your thoughts. And I forgot, up at the top, this is Nell from Michigan. So yeah, just coming full circle back to the case that got me here to find you in the first place.
Nell from Michigan, thank you so much. Glad that you're back and glad that we got you on board with this case. Laura Owens. I'll be honest with you, Nell. You know more about it than I do. It sounds like you've been following it's a lot of noise, not about the case itself, right? It's a lot about lawyers and plea agreements and back and forth and drama. And her lawyer is facing disbarment. So like I said, a lot of nonsense surrounding this, which, the common factor here is Laura herself. She's causing all this drama and nonsense. And I don't know why her lawyer is facing disbarment, but, the declaring of bankruptcy and all of that other nonsense. Just to catch everybody else up, this case, again, a wild one. Laura Owens is described on the line as an equestrian and a podcaster. That is quite a resume. She's actually the son of Ron Owens, which I think is why this got a little bit of attention. He was a very famous Bay Area radio icon. Anyhow, she has a short dalliance, is the right word, with a man by the name of Clayton Echard, who was a famous from The Bachelor. Their relationship apparently ends fairly quickly, and she starts to tell Clayton that she got pregnant, and she's sending him sonographs, and she's saying, then she starts to sue him. She wants $45,000 for emotional abuse. And she's saying that he forced her to terminate the pregnancy, all of this horrible, horrible, horrific stuff. Well, turns out the sonographs were faked. Are they sonograms or sonographs? Grams? Okay, Tiffany's saying grams. That they were all faked, like that you could easily find these online. And this whole thing's an extortion. To add to that, it sounds like Clayton wasn't alone. There's another gentleman by the name of Greg Gillespie out of Arizona who's claiming she did the same thing to him a couple years earlier. And then another man named Michael Maracchini, who's saying she did the same thing to him even a couple of years before Greg. So now she's got a string of gentlemen that have all been taken advantage of by her. She's an absolute alleged sociopath. She's made a career out of trying to extort men over this. The interesting thing about this is I would love to hear from these men why they entered the relationship with her to begin with. And did they not see like clear red flags of some sort of mental unrest with this woman, or did they ignore them? Anyhow, the latest on this is that there's apparently some sort of plea deal on the table. She has until April 24th to either accept that or not and get that worked out. And if she doesn't, trial is set for July 29th. And I think this is the trial for Clayton's case. The other cases are going to have to be handled separately because they're in different states. So that's the latest on that whole drama. If you guys want me to continue to kind of follow this and update you, we'll put this on our list of cases, but it is a wild one. It is a wild one to say the least. But thank you, Nell, for bringing us up to date on that. And for calling in. And thank you to Maureen for the super chat. Says Ron Owens was huge in the Bay Area. There you go. Well, Maureen knows because she's from Monterey. And Ms. Behaven says that female is a sandwich short of a picnic. It's very true. I heard this one today. I'm going to start to use this. That guy's so dumb, he came in third place playing tic-tac-toe. I like that one. I'm going to start using that. All right. Let's keep it rolling here.
Good morning, Courtroom Confidential. This is Sonia from Chicago. It is morning now, early morning. And I'm watching one of our very good friends, or was watching one of our very good friends, Gisela, talk about the arrest made in the Iowa realtors case. So this is a case about Ashley Okland, who was shot and unalived while hosting an open house in Iowa. So I guess this was a big case because it changed how, realtors did open houses. Anyway, all these years later, a woman was arrested, and her name is Kristin Ramsey. And I think this is a case that we should follow. It's very interesting because they say that there was no arrest. There's nothing out. There's no information. I don't know why, because it was done by a grand jury, so we can't know the information. I don't know. Maybe you can explain that. I don't know why we don't have information about why and how she was arrested. Looking forward to talking about this, hearing from you, and hopefully following this case. Because, you're the best. So you guys are the best. Everybody's the best. Okay, bye.
Everybody's the best, including you, Sonia. You're the best. Thank you so much. Sonia from Chicago, Illinois. And you're right. This case, I think when I looked for information on this, there's very little details on it online. And I think that does have to do with the grand jury. Grand juries are secret. An indictment can remain under seal, but I imagine we're going to be hearing much more information about this. And it is a fascinating case, and we will continue to follow it. So this is surrounding the death of a woman by the name of Ashley Okland. She was only 27 years old, working as a real estate agent in West Des Moines, Iowa. On April 8th of 2011, she is found inside of a model home. You know how they'll show like a model home for a residential development area? She's found dead, shot 2 times. And it goes cold. And they've conducted an investigation. But you're right, the entire kind of community, and especially within the real estate world, there is thrown for a loop because is this now a thing that random acts of violence against real estate agents, because they do put themselves in these, with a perfect stranger sometimes meeting in a home where easily something like this could happen. So the problem is there has now been an arrest, which that's not the problem. They arrested a woman by the name of Kristin Ramsey. She's 53 years old now. Kristin worked for the company that built the model home that Ashley was showing. So there is a connection between these two. But as far as motive, as far as details on what led to the arrest, as far as why it took all this period of time, if a witness came forward, if there was a DNA hit, all of that, we don't know. We don't know. So we will continue to follow this one. It is a fascinating case. What was she doing there? What was she doing there with a gun? You would think if it was like a motive thing that we would have that information fairly quickly, because friends and family members and associates would say, oh yeah, well, this woman always had a beef with her. Kristin couldn't shut up about how much she hated Ashley. In fact, none of that. In fact, people are shocked. An article I read said that her former boss at this company was like, we were all blown away when Kristin got arrested for this. Oh, here we go. Kaylin with some inside information says, my BF's mom is a realtor and has some very scary stories of people acting strange in her model homes. See that? Carry that pepper spray, you real estate agents. Be careful of who you meet with. Yeah, it's a bizarre situation. You think about it. You meet someone, hey, go meet me at this house that's completely empty. Let's go meet there together. Yeah, I'd love to know the motive too. All right. Great question, though, Sonia. Thank you for asking, and thank you for putting Chicago on the map, and thank you for putting that case on our radar. Let's keep it rolling here. Not my fault, Kaylin. I'm pressing all the buttons.
Hi, Josh and CC crew. This is Dorothy from Wall, New Jersey. Rex Heuermann had his DNA collected after he was arrested. However, it was not submitted to CODIS until he pled guilty. I had the misunderstanding that DNA would be submitted to CODIS when collected. Could you please explain the process for submitting DNA to CODIS? Thank you.
Dorothy from Wall, New Jersey. Let's put you on the map. Great question, Dorothy. Dorothy wants to know, as some of you may have heard, that Rex Heuermann's DNA was not submitted to CODIS, and it won't be submitted to CODIS until after sentencing. Is that the way it works? Why are they doing that? Is that in fact true? These are all great questions that, by the way, I don't really have an answer for, but that's never going to stop me, ladies and gentlemen. You can't stump me because I can always phone a friend.
Hi, Dorothy. This is Joe Jacqueline from True Crime with the Sergeant to answer your question. Maryland v. King is a 2013 U.S. Supreme Court decision that says that law enforcement can take DNA upon arrest. However, New York State has been very progressive, and it has said that until somebody is convicted, we are not going to put it in the federal database. So that means it's in the local database that New York City runs and the state database. Now, Ray Tierney at the presser did say that if any law enforcement agency requested it, they would oblige, but he didn't deny nor confirm if anybody has. We do know that Las Vegas was inquiring. We do not know if they got it or not. So I hope this answers your question.
Joe Jacqueline from True Crime with the Sarge. Thank you so much, Joe. I think he answered that perfectly. I even given you some case law and legislative background on the whole thing. Please, if you guys are not familiar with Joe, go follow him over on his YouTube channel, True Crime with the Sarge. We are also putting up his social media, so you can let him know how thankful we are for answering the question. Send him some juice boxes. Keep him just as confused as to why he's getting all these juice boxes. But there you go, Dorothy. It's because they passed a law in New York State, that they're not going to put these hits into the federal CODIS system until a person has been convicted and sentenced. That's dumb. I listen, is there this concern that innocent people might have their information in CODIS? And why do we want to be subjecting people until they've been convicted of a crime to being in the... Maybe, but you can submit my DNA to CODIS because I got nothing to hide. Like, this is like, I get the stuff that we do where we're trying to protect the privacy and due process of people who are innocent of crimes, right? But what do you care about your DNA being run through a system if you got nothing to hide? And you could be, by the way, causing delay in the solving of other cases because you're too busy messing around with your local, what if he wasn't convicted? What if for whatever outrageous reason this man didn't get convicted? Now we're just not going to enter his DNA into the system? Makes no sense. And then they do it on a local level. So they don't got a problem running somebody's DNA through the state of New York. They just got a problem putting it into the federal system. Makes no sense to me. This is what you get when you got a bunch of non-lawyers and people who don't know how the system actually works writing all the laws. But that is for another day. And on my new channel, Josh Rants. Please join on YouTube at Josh Rants. All right. Thank you so much, Dorothy. And big thank you to Joe Jackalone for answering that question for us. All right. Where are we off to next here?
Hi, Josh, Tiff, Caitlin, Mods, and CC crew. This is a very croaky little Miss Red Velvet from Manchester. First of all, I want to thank Josh for the 2 a.m. mention during the Konig verdict. It made my night early morning. My question today is about the Nancy Guthrie case. You know, when you have ineffective counsel, Josh, can you have ineffective investigation? When do you think it's time to bring in fresh eyes, and can you bring them in from another state? And when does it become a cold case? Look forward to seeing you all on Sunday. Take care. Bye.
LMRV from Manchester, England. Get yourself some tea, get some honey, feel better. Thank you so much for pulling through to ask a question, though. Always good to hear from you. And I don't know what you were, I'll tell you why you're sick, because you were up at 2 a.m. in the morning worrying about Gerhardt Konig. You need to get some rest and you need to drink some tea. And I hope that you feel better, but we loved hearing from you. And some great questions. Okay, so Little Miss Red Velvet puts this in the category of Nancy Guthrie, but it really could apply to anything. First of all, you can have an ineffective assistance of counsel. Can you have ineffective investigation? Well, the answer is you can have an ineffective investigation, but you can't do anything about it. The law enforcement enjoys fairly broad immunity. As long as they are not doing something illegal, and long as they're not doing something clearly outside of the scope of law enforcement, right? I'm trying to think of a good example, but operating outside of their jurisdiction. Let's say if the Tucson Sheriff's Department is all of a sudden trying to perform some operation in Nevada, that would be a problem. But just being bad at your job, no real consequences. The consequences are vote this man out of office. But other than that, and why do we have that? Why does that exist? Well, we want police to be able to do their job without constantly wondering, are they going to get sued or arrested for trying to do their job? Because many times officers are put in very difficult situations where they are making quick, incredibly consequential decisions and trying to do their best. And if they're constantly thinking about, am I going to get sued for this? It might put them into some sort of decision paralysis where they just don't do anything. I mean, if I were a police officer and I thought every time I got a call where I might have to arrest someone, there's the potential that I get sued, probably not going lights and sirens to every radio call I get, right? Probably best to just show up, write a report, rather than try to actually do some proactive police work. So that's the reason for it. And no, there is no ineffective investigation. when can you bring in, LMRV asked, when can you bring in help from another state or agency? Whenever you like, you just have to ask. It's all about jurisdictional stuff. By the way, just as a little aside, the FBI could take this case over if they wanted to. The FBI is very clever about finding a federal hook for why they can investigate a case. And where they want to, they do. And where they don't want to, all of a sudden they are a lot of times hands off until they're invited. And just because federal jurisdiction exists doesn't mean they have to take the case. This is clearly a state matter. So they don't have to take it. But this idea that their hands are tied until they're invited is not entirely true in this circumstance. But it's up to Pima County, and they have invited the FBI. They've invited, I think, even other agencies. I think Homeland Security was involved at one point. I don't think at this point is a lack of resources. I think it is a lack of any viable leads. And so they're just continuing to work those leads. There was hundreds of resources thrown at this, and they came up with nothing. And when does a case become cold? Well, there's no official designation of any of that. I think a case becomes cold when you've just run out of leads. If you've got nothing, and I think that's what law enforcement would consider cold too. You've got nothing that you're actively working. Like I said earlier, the backpack, the gun, the video, the DNA, if all of that comes to dead ends and you've got nothing and you're just waiting around for perhaps somebody to come forward or some other tip to come through, I would consider that cold. Are we at that point just yet? I don't know. If we're not, we can see it on the horizon. And it's really sad. And it's shocking to me too. But thank you so much, Little Miss Red Velvet, for asking the question. Always appreciate hearing from you. All right. Jan Gould, thank you so much for the super sticker, Jan. Very kind of you. Sophia Chowdhury, thank you so much, says, hi, is Shanna Gardner going to have a separate jury for her case? Yes. There's the quick and easy answer to that. Yes, a judge recently decided that her and Mario are getting separate trials. The issue here, I don't think we have a question on this, so I might as well talk about it now. The issue here was statements. If you've got co-defendants and you're going to use the statement of one defendant against that defendant, that's easy enough. But you can't have the jury then use that against the other defendant. So how do you prevent that from happening? Well, sometimes you have same trial, dual juries. And when you're going to present evidence from against one defendant, and it's admissible against one defendant, but not the other, you just take the jury that's deciding the fate of the other defendant and have them wait outside of court. And usually that's fairly easily handled because you've got one or two statements, maybe one or two witnesses. You can kind of plan to have an afternoon where that one jury has the afternoon off. It might be some other shuffling during opening statements. It might be some shuffling during closing arguments. I've handled a case like this before with dual juries. It added some extra complication to it, but it wasn't like, an impossible task. Well, you know it's not an impossible task if I was able to do it. And people have handled, very complex cases. It involves multiple defendants is where you're going to see this come up. Now, for whatever reason, the prosecution feels that there's just so much of this in this case that they can't do it with dual juries at the same time. So they want to have separate trials. And there was a bunch of discussion about picking the jury at the same time, but then separating the trials. And the judge said, we're not getting fancy. Okay. This is not the time or place to get fancy. We're going to have separate trials. You're going to pick the jury separately. We're just going to handle it that way. And so when is it set for, ladies? I know one of them's coming up quick. We talked about this early, and they're right after each other too. I think it's like within, they finish the first one and they go straight into jury selection on the next one. So thank you for that. We discussed this. Well, there you go. That's how you'll find out. Kaylin says, check out the weekly roundup with Josh and Matt Johnson, where we discuss the decision in the Gardner case. That's true. Matt Johnson, formerly of Court TV, was on to discuss that with us. So please check that out. And there's the link. June Sidloskus. Yes? Did I do that right? I think so. Says, I just watched a hearing on Iowa versus Ashley Oakley this morning on YouTube. This is very interesting case. Have a great day. Do I know that case? Why is that name very familiar? Am I confusing it with Annie Oakley? Oh, did I just talk about it? Hold on. Oh, Okland. That's where I got thrown off. Ashley Okland was the woman that got killed out of Iowa. Yes. Yes, that is a fascinating case. Oh, so there was a hearing on it. Well, then maybe we're going to hear more about it. We will follow that one. We're going to put that on our radar. I'm going to tell our crack team of investigative reporters to make sure that we continue to follow that one. All right. Quit with the chatting, Ritter. Get back to work. Where am I at? Did I lose my space? No, I didn't. Here we go.
Hey, Josh, this is Gloria from Florida, Tampa area. It seemed like a convenient loophole. Normally, witnesses can't listen to testimony in the courtroom if they're going to be testifying later on in the trial. However, Gerhardt got to sit there and listen to everything Ariel said when she testified, so he could fashion his comments. He knew he was going to testify later. He could consult with his lawyer, couldn't he, and fashion his comments around what Ariel had said. And that just seems like a convenient loophole when the defendant gets to stay in the courtroom and listen to others' testimony. All right. I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Gloria from Tampa, Florida. Let's put you on the map. Very astute observation, Gloria. And Gloria further confirms what I have always said, that this is the smartest chat and community on YouTube. You're right. Why do we require other witnesses to wait outside of the courtroom until they testify, so that they're not influenced by the testimony of prior witnesses, but we allow the defendant to sit there the entire time, and then by the time they testify, they could get up there and kind of clean everything up, play cleanup, and answer all of the issues brought up by other witnesses. Well, a couple things on this. One, it's not a law that a witness can't be in the courtroom. It is usually done to preempt any questions, right? To make sure there isn't any confusion about what a person is testifying to. But, people before they testify are usually already locked into what they're going to testify to, because most witnesses have already given a statement to law enforcement, maybe more than once, then testified at the preliminary hearing. So they're already under oath at the preliminary hearing. And now they're testifying, and it's, the second or third or fourth time that person has given a statement on what they're going to testify to. So the idea that we're worried about witnesses being in court and hearing something and then going up on the stand and completely pivoting is not as big a concern as you might think it is. Does it happen even when they're not responding to what they've seen in court, even when they have been remained outside? Yeah, you'll get a witness who for the first time says something on the stand, and they're usually ripped to shreds over it. You've never said this. How many times? And blah, 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 and prior inconsistent statements and all this other kind of stuff. But it happens, and you'll see that happen. It usually causes fireworks in court. So to kind of avoid the appearance of impropriety, we have these motions to exclude, and the witnesses wait outside so that there can't be any question that they are merely responding to what they've heard in court. But Gloria says, well, what about the defendant? He or she is sitting there the whole time. Can't they? Yes. First of all, they've got a constitutional right to be there for every minute of it, so we can't keep them away. But secondly, yeah, and the jury knows that, and that can be highlighted. That can be brought out by a clever cross-examination from the prosecutor. Can say, this is your first time ever talking, and you heard so-and-so say in court, now you're saying X, Y, and Z. Now, problem is that usually isn't effective because you usually don't have statements from the defendant before. It usually is their first time saying anything to anybody. And you got to be very careful about saying you never told this story before, because then you might be addressing their Fifth Amendment issue to remain silent. So this is what's all the issues that are at play. I don't think it gives the defendant all that much of a advantage, though. I think most jurors are savvy enough to realize that the defendant testifying, they are probably testifying purely for their own self-interest. I see a lot of bears in the chat. Did I miss something? Oh, there's what I missed. Gizla. Grizzly True Triumph says, took you all on a run with me. Hey, Josh and crew, happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you. Look at that, making me, now I got to go exercise. See, I was gonna take a day off and be lazy, but now Gizla has motivated me, and I'm gonna go exercise as soon as we're done with this. Thank you so much. And to Perry, thank you so much for the super sticker. And to Joy, thank you for supporting the mods with coffees. Appreciate you guys. All right. Just a Crazy Jen says, hi again. Are there limits on victim impact statements? Like how many people can submit them and sending letters to the judge? There is no limits. There's not like some kind of rule. But I will say, you know, if it's talking about people speaking at a sentencing, a judge is probably going to kind of limit that. You know, you don't want to sit through a sentencing of 20 something people long. But people can, you know, the judge will take 40 different letters. I always say, though, like, you expect him to read all that? He or she to read all that? Or why don't you get together 6 really solid ones that will have an actual impact on what the judge does? But thank you, Just a Crazy Jen. I hope that's actually answering your question. All right. Hush up, Ritter. Get back to work. All right, here we go. Let's keep it rolling. Here we go.
Hi, y'all. Court Dog Daniel from New Britain, Connecticut. Josh, I was actually present for the Rex Heuermann guilty plea and the press conferences, and something really struck me. It took years, multiple agencies, countless investigators, and an enormous amount of time and money to bring one person to justice. It made me think about something I've thought about for a long time. At sentencing, after hearing all the horrific details and the impact on the families and the judge's disposition, you'll often hear something like restitution in the amount of $2,500 plus a $40 court fee. I'm thinking after everything we just heard, the restitution number almost sounds borderline ridiculous in contrast to the magnitude of it all. So my question is, what exactly is restitution? What is it meant to cover? Does it vary state to state? And why does it often feel so disconnected from the scale of the crime and the effort it takes to prosecute it? 47 days till CrimeCon. Juiced.
Court Dog Daniel, CDD, one of my dudes, calling from New Britain. Always running at a high level of juicery is Court Dog Daniel. That's fascinating that you were actually in court for the Heuermann plea. I would love to hear more about that. I just want to know, what is this guy? I mean, he looks like an absolute monster when we look at him. I would love to know what it's just like to be in the same room as that guy. And this is a great question. It is kind of always awkward when we talk about, you know, the loss of life and murder and how many counts of murder and all this horrific stuff and somebody going to prison for the rest of their life. Like 8 women whose lives he's now admitted to taking, to murdering, strangling to death. I'll read their names. It is Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Bartholomew, Amberlynn Costello, Megan Waterman, Jessica Taylor, Sandra Castilla, Valerie Mack, and now Karen Vergata. Karen, he was not charged with, but is admitting to having murdered her. And then you'll hear something, and $2,000 in restitution. And it sounds like, really? What are we doing here? Well, here's what's at play. First of all, a lot of this is, again, statutory. There are mandatory court fines and fees. You're going to have like a court processing fee and a, I don't know. There's all these weird little fines and fees. And one of those is a contribution to a state restitution fund. So many times even where there isn't restitution, you will have a person ordered to pay a fine into the restitution fund. And it's usually low because it's just required of every person who's convicted of a felony. Restitution, though, in its sense, as far as paying the victims or the victim's family, is not like civil cases, right? You're not talking about loss of I forget what the civil term is for it, but the loss of kind of that loved one, what impact did they have on your life, the loss of the financial impact of having lost that person to other people, punitive damages, all of this type of stuff. Restitution in the criminal sense is purely out-of-pocket expenses. Purely. So in like burglary type cases, it can make sense, right? You stole someone's diamond jewelry, that can make a lot of sense. But in many cases, it might be minimal, and even in very serious cases. So restitution in these cases might just amount to funeral costs. It is not, in criminal law, we are not trying to make a person whole through financial damages. Criminal law is about punishing that person for the crime that they've done. And the restitution is merely about making the victim's family whole for the loss that they've had. So it's, you paid funeral costs, give us the receipts, and you will get covered for that, and he'll be ordered to pay that. But that's why you don't see these fees that seem to make sense. But great question. Court Dog Daniel, one of my dudes, for asking that. I'm glad we got an opportunity to clear that. For Josh's full legal analysis on Rex's guilty plea. Oh, you make that sound so fancy. Please check out our what is this episode? Is this from when is this from? From last Friday or Wednesday? Wednesday? Okay, there you go. Oh, this is the one that we did with Laura Ingle and Chanley Painter. Yeah, check that out. That was a great episode. We talked all about Rex, so please check that out. All right. Keep it moving, Ritter.
This is Mandy here from County of Wexford in Ireland. Hello to the CC crew. Have a happy Sunday. My third attempt. I try to be faster this time. So on March 26th, I have 3 appeals questions, just saying. On March 26th, Kelsey Fitzsimmons was declared not guilty after a 3-day bench trial. Can a bench trial be appealed? Is question number 1. The next one, Letecia Stauch. And that weird fake appeals reason. Could it be that, like, it's clear that the juror was not meant to be there, right? And everybody knew this. So why did the defense not strike him in voir dire? Did they just keep a dirty little ace up their sleeve so that they can have a conviction? That they have an appeals reason? Do you know? She got life without parole plus 156 years, which takes her out of the reincarnation cycle as well. But now she is not convicted, is she? So is she actually in jail, or is she roaming amongst us, which is a horrific thought? And I would have a third question about the sentencing in the Konig trial. Can the judge base his decision on the sentencing duration on all the evidence that he heard in motions of limine, or only what the jury heard? So, like, can he give him 1,000 years, please? Do you know, can they take everything into consideration, like the ex-wife, the stalking, the coercive control? Hi, this is Mandy again from County Wexford in Ireland. I did not get to say thank you properly because I got cut off. So thank you for considering my questions. I have another little story because, you know, the Koenig trial was on, and I've never heard the word testicle mentioned as many times as I have heard in this case or in that case, right? So ever in my entire life, and I've lived a long life. So in Ireland, we have a trap, neuter, release program, which is for feral cats. You can sponsor a cat to be trapped, neutered, and released. And for a $5, you can give them your ex's name, right? But I think it's a genius idea. Now, I don't have anybody I hate, but I will actually count how many times the word testicle has been mentioned in that trial, and I will sponsor as many cats, all with the name of Gerhardt or Konig maybe, or GK, or something thereof. I will sponsor as many cats to be neutered and to be released out to make sure they never reproduce. Isn't that a fun idea? If you want to support it, just give me a shout. Other than that, have a lovely Sunday, you all. Take care.
Mandy, you are such a treat. Mandy from Wexford, Ireland. Usually I don't like to play like double messages. I try to, spread the love as much as possible, but that one was just too good. Great idea, Mandy. First of all, I love that they've got that program. There's going to be a bunch of feral cats running around Ireland now that everybody's going to be referring to as Gerhardt. Oh, Ain't No Hollaback Girl did the work. 16 times you heard the word testicle in that trial. Wasn't that so bizarre? Tiff Knox also confirming that that crack research. Wasn't that so bizarre? Like, I really think he thought that was going to have some sort of effect on the jurors, Gerhardt, that somehow that would evoke sympathy. Like they would take a look at her absolutely beaten and bloody face and go, well, I mean, she did grab him by the testicles. I mean, kind of, what do you expect here? It was just so lame. The way his whole testimony, that's why I think this is why he went to trial, was to do this woe is me thing. His entire testimony was a pity party. I would love to hear Dr. Barry's assessment of him. I think of him as just a person who kind of has gone his whole life trying to manipulating people by making them feel sorry for him. Probably why Ariel stayed with him for as long as she did. And, now it all went completely sideways, and he's going to be performing surgeries in prison for the next 10 years. We'll see. Teste. Get it? Testimony, Josh. I got made fun of for my tic-tac-toe as a dad joke. That's a dad joke. All right. I can actually hear Tiffany laughing in the other side of the house from that. All right. But you did ask some very good questions, Mandy. So let me get to those. First of all, Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Can a bench trial be appealed? Sure. It can be appealed because what's being appealed are the evidentiary rulings most of the time. Appeals are rarely about the juror's conduct, though we have seen that. It's rarely about the juror's conduct. Most times it's about the jury instructions, so you're not going to see that in a bench trial, but it can be about evidentiary rulings made by that judge. Should the judge have allowed certain testimony to come in or not? You can appeal all of that. So excellent question. It's probably presenting less opportunity, but the answer is it's not presenting no opportunity. Letecia Stauch. Letecia Stauch. This is an excellent question. So why this case is coming back is because a juror was put on who sat on the jury who said that they had, I think it was their son-in-law was a DA in that same office. There is a law on the books I'm blanking on the state. What state is this? Ohio? I'm not sure. Well, you guys will tell me soon enough. But there is a law on the books in the state where she was prosecuted. Colorado. Is it Colorado? That says a judge there. I'm seeing Colorado's pop up in the chat. That says that a judge shall dismiss a potential juror with even a third degree relationship to any attorney on the case. That language, shall, doesn't give room for discretion. And the appellate court in Colorado said that was a mistake, and that mistake alone gets her a new trial. Well, Mandy from Wexford, Ireland, who's now out handing out fivers to have cats neutered and called Gerhardt, has pointed out, well, why didn't, if the defense had such a problem with this, why didn't they just use a peremptory challenge against her? Great question. Problem doesn't change the appeal issue. Whether or not they use the peremptory doesn't doesn't change the language of the statute. And in fact, they preserved it by objecting to it. They said, Your Honor, we think this is statutorily required. Judge said no. They said we object, and that was enough to preserve the issue for appeal. Didn't require them to also then use their challenge, because if they had, there would be no issue. So was that kind of 3D chess on their part? Were they saying, well, let's not use this challenge so we can keep it in our pocket to later on bring it up on appeal? Usually I say that stuff doesn't happen. Attorneys are not thinking that far ahead. You might have a point in this one. They might have thought, you know what? We don't really have a problem with this juror, so we don't want to use a peremptory on them. We'd rather save our peremptories, and we preserve this issue for appeal. Let's see what happens afterwards. And it worked out to their benefit. And we have a full video on Letecia Stauch. So there you go. And then finally, Gerhardt Konig. Can the judge use all the evidence or only what the jury heard? The judge can use everything. The judge is not bound by the same evidentiary rules. The judge can hear other evidence, and the judge will hear other evidence because the judge will hear victim impact statements. But the judge is also bound by certain sentencing guidelines. So it's not like the judge can just say, I know you only got convicted of voluntary manslaughter, but I'm going to sentence you to life. The judge is kind of restricted to a certain window of years. And I think it's anywhere from 10 to 20 or something like that. Still a significant period of time. But thank you so much, Mandy, for asking that question. Maureen from Monterey says, an anesthesiologist friend said, no anesthesiologist keeps anesthesia meds just in case. Why didn't prosecution have anesthesiast rebut his testimony? Again, I think it comes down to, why highlight this obviously ridiculous issue here? I mean, is the issue whether or not an anesthesiologist does that regularly? Or is the issue, what is he doing with it, regardless of why he's saying he has it? You know what I mean? Like, okay, maybe maybe some of the jurors believe that could be a thing, but he's obviously trying to stab his wife with it. I mean, the end of the day, I don't believe the jurors believe the needles. I mean, it sounds like one juror, I think one juror has been vocal about this and said, we didn't find that there was enough evidence to believe that he intended to kill her, which is astonishing to me. But to me, that means they don't believe the needles, that they were there. How do you say, we don't believe you intended to do it? Go ahead, Kaylin. We didn't feel the evidence would uphold the fact that he intended on murdering her. This is jury foreperson Makalapua Atkins. I don't agree with you, Makalapua. I respect your decision, but I don't agree with you. I think if you believed that he had a needle on him, that's intending to murder someone. And by the way, needle or no needle, you beat somebody over the head with a rock 10 times. I don't think you're intending to, massage their scalp. So thank you for that, Maureen, though. All right, let's, Nana of 4, thank you so much for supporting the mods with coffees. Appreciate you. Mandola Jane, thank you so much, says, thanks for counting. I would be as broke as I thought. And thank you, Josh, for answering all my questions. Enjoy the rest of your day, CC crew. Thank you, Mandy. Yeah, maybe we should put together a GoFundMe for Mandy so she can get all those cats renamed in Ireland. Love that. All right. Where are we off to next here? Here we go.
Good morning, Joshua, Tiffany, Hollaback girl here from Kawarthas, Ontario, referencing the Gerhardt Konig trial, a little bit of a head shaker for me in terms of the verdict. But I have been to Hawaii many times. I've done that short flip over to Maui. It's just a 20-minute flight. I'm curious because you still have to go through airport security as to why the prosecutors didn't subpoena the screening agent to discuss whether or not Konig had a signed declaration that he had a medical bag, was a doctor, and if indeed they asked him to identify any liquid medications that were in the bag. Second point, an afterthought, I'm just wondering why police investigators or the state didn't hire a professional climber to rappel down the cliffside to see if they could find anything that perhaps had been thrown over the cliff. And why not put boots on the ground and canine and even a drone at the base to see if they could find anything. I hope that the judge throws the max at him, which is 20 years. I think he's dangerous, and I think he will reoffend and perhaps go after Ariel again. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
ANHBG, a no hollaback girl from Kawartha, Ontario, Canada. Thank you so much for always contributing to the conversation and for asking the question. You got some strong thoughts about Gerhardt Konig, as do I. I agree with you. I think it was, I don't think this was the verdict that was that matched the conduct that I heard described in court. I think that he is going to prison and losing his profession and a bunch of other consequences, but I still don't think that that matches what it was proven to me, at least, that he did in court. And so you say, well, why didn't they do more? Why didn't they go back to customs to see if he had declared items or if anybody had seen him with syringes and vials in his luggage? Or why didn't they employ a search team to look through that entire area? I mean, here's the problem. I mean, it's a resources question. I mean, you're talking about, first of all, as far as the search, you're literally trying to find a needle in a jungle, right? I mean, if you've seen pictures of that area, you're talking about a vast area where, by the way, he could have ditched the needle anywhere, right? We don't know where he ditched it. He could have ran off half a mile and then ditched it, thrown it in a lake. I mean, you're talking about a search that would just, the amount of man hours to do that, nearly impossible. Why didn't they go back through customs? I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they came up with nothing. You would think if they came up with nothing, the defense would have highlighted that. Sounds like they didn't do it. A lot of times these cases come down to the resources, though. I mean, they, in their view, just to kind of play advocate for the law enforcement involved here, they caught the guy. They caught the guy. They got eyewitnesses to what he did. They got him confessing to it to the son. It's like, what are we doing here? Do we really need more on this? Apparently to this set of jurors, they did, as far as it goes to that intent. I'm just really still shocked. I don't know. Maybe the prosecutor didn't drive that point home enough to them that this is clearly intent, that, if you believe he had that needle, that syringe, then this is purely intent. He was missing for 8 hours, plenty of time to, I think where you're going with that is plenty of time to ditch it somewhere that they would never find it again. Oh, there you go. Now, forever when you see Gerhardt, you'll think of cats walking around without their full tackle. Tiffany says, can we get to 700 likes? If so, we'll gift some memberships. Oh, see that? Tiffany with a little carrot stick sort of a situation there. Yeah. Hit that like button, everybody, if you haven't already. It's free to do. The government won't know about it. Go ahead and click that like button. All right. Where are we off to here? Here we go.
Hello, Josh, and everyone at Courtroom Confidential. I hope you don't get this message twice. I think the first time I did something wrong. Technology and I don't get along, so anyway, this is Lori Feeney from Bolivar, Ohio, and my question is about the verdict in the Hawaii versus Konig case. The jury found him guilty of attempted manslaughter. I always thought manslaughter meant there's no intention to kill on the part of the accused. So how can you attempt something that's unintentional? That's my question. And I want to thank you, Josh, and everyone there for all you do. And also, Josh, I want to thank you for my favorite moments in every show, which are when you say, take a big cleansing breath, it's all going to be okay. Ah, because it is. And you usually say, and as always, Tiffany, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. And I just love that and commend you for that. So thank you for all you do. I hope you can answer my question and have a happy Sunday fun day, everybody.
Aw, Lori from Bolivar, Ohio. That's very sweet of you. Thank you so much, Lori, for all the kind words. Tiffany's got a big smile on her face now, so thank you for that. Garrett, yeah, I know. This has got a lot of people worked up, the Gerhardt Konig case. Me too. Listen, this is what I say all the time. You never know what 12 people are going to do, right? I mean, it's so unpredictable. I've had cases where I've thought it was rock solid and they came back with something like this. And I've had cases where I thought, we're barely going to get this one across the finish line and it comes back guilty. So, and on both sides of the aisle, both as a prosecutor and as defense attorney, I've been shocked. But you ask an excellent question, Lori, because you are part of the CC crew, which is the smartest community on YouTube. How can you attempt to do something that you don't intend to do? If an attempted crime, or what we would call in the law an inchoate, there you go, there's your vocabulary word for the day, an inchoate crime, don't you have to intend to do it to then fail to actually accomplish it? Great question. And most times we say, yeah. Most times. Hawaii has on their books the idea that you can commit, however, an attempted manslaughter. This doesn't exist in California, by the way, because California does view it as an attempt requires intent. I think the way that they view it in Hawaii, though, is that if your underlying conduct, had it been completed, would result in this crime, then you can have an attempt of that crime. So in other words, if the underlying conduct would have been manslaughter, but for the idea the person's still alive, would this have been a manslaughter? Then that's an attempted manslaughter. Okay. So what the jurors are saying here is that we don't feel he intended to kill, as we saw in that quote. We don't feel that there was an intent to kill. We feel, it sounds like they, to some degree, bought the idea that there may have been some sort of heat of passion, spur of the moment, mutual combat, I don't know, something that they felt like he didn't actually didn't mean to actually kill her. Well, then what was he meaning to do? I mean, this is the problem that starts to bother me is, are you saying that he had no intention when he went up there, when he was trying to push her off the cliff or trying to stab her with the syringe? Okay, so he had no intention to kill her that day. So then what did happen? Well, then you are saying there was some sort of mutual combat and you are saying he had to fight back. So to some extent, you're buying the idea that this was self-defense and that he didn't mean to do any of this and it all went tragic and he beat her over the head in some sort of self-defense, but we're still going to call it an attempted manslaughter. Had he killed her, they would have felt it was manslaughter. I mean, still, a woman is screaming. Put aside the syringe. Eyewitnesses are saying a woman is screaming, help me, help me, help me. You, as a larger man, are standing over, sitting on top of her, beating her in the head with a volcanic rock. Do we have a picture of the rock? The rock always just gets me in this thing. Beating her over the head with this. But I didn't mean to kill her. I just had to stop her from viciously grabbing my testicles. Anyway, anyhow, thank you, Lori. Great question, as always. But the answer is Hawaii's got that on the books, so that's why they came up with that. All right. You guys having a good time? Are you guys fully juiced? Oh, look at this. Was it Challenge Met? Challenge Met, Courtroom Confidential, 5 memberships. Hope you guys all enjoy it. Thank you guys so much for being here again today. Can we get to 800, says the crafty RN? All right. You heard it. 800. Take a big cleansing breath and hit that like button if you haven't already. Mary Jubinville has been a member for 11 months. Happy Crewversary. Says, my favorite day of the week, Sunday Fun Day. 100% juiced. Thank you so much, Marie. All right. We're coming down to the end here, guys. Brace yourselves.
Happy Sunday Fun Day, CC Crew. This is Sky calling from sunny Miami, Florida. I have a question for you, Josh, about the Tanner Hormer case. If this man pled guilty to capital murder, and the judge had to ask him when he took his plea, accepted his plea, are you of sound mind? Were you of sound mind when you are making this plea? And apparently Tanner and Zero, both of them would have had to answer yes, we are of sound mind. So now at the penalty phase, apparently his whole entire defense is he is now out of sound mind. Neither he nor Zero are of sound mind. So I'm confused on this. If indeed, which I don't think will ever happen, but if indeed the jury does find that he is not of sound mind and he can't be put to death, is the judge going to then turn around and not accept his guilty plea? And then we're going to start at 0? Josh, help me out. I'm so confused. Thanks, you guys. Have a great day. Bye.
Sky, thank you so much for calling in from Miami, Florida. Let's put Miami on the map. I feel like this is the first caller from Miami we've ever had. Sky, your job for the next week is to go out and tell all your friends in Miami to go ahead and follow us and join us next time and ask a question, because I think we need more representation out of South Florida there. This case, I'll be honest with you guys, I have been avoiding talking about this case. Every once in a while, there are cases that I struggle to even really think about. I can deal with a lot. I've been doing this my entire career. I can deal with a lot of really horrible stuff. And some of it doesn't bother me. Probably should, but some of it doesn't bother me. But this type of stuff, I really struggle with. This is this absolute piece of filth monster named Tanner Horner murdered a 7-year-old Athena Strand. He was a FedEx driver. He's told conflicting stories, but for whatever reason, he got her on his truck. Sounds like he assaulted her, strangled her to death. It's just, you hear stories but when you take just the most innocent amongst us and just do something so nightmarish, like I start to think about this family. I think about this girl's last moments, and I think about this family and what they're going through. I do not know. I like to think of myself as a very strong individual who has had to deal with struggles in their own life. I do not know how people survive after this. This took place back in November of 2022 in Paradise, Texas. He is now entered a plea. This is the interesting legal part about this is that he entered a plea guilty. He doesn't want to have the trial. He just wants to have the penalty phase. So they're trying to decide. He's looking at the death penalty. The juror's only question is not whether or not he did this, but whether or not he should get the death penalty or he should get life without parole. I think the strategy behind that is that he's caught on video. He's admitted to it. There's so much evidence against him. I think his attorney said, listen, if you want any chance at all of trying to save your own life, you cannot try to even appear to be fighting the guilt of this. Just admit to it and let's deal with the penalty phase, and we'll beg for your life. To Sky's question, though, he is saying he did this, but it wasn't really him. It was his alter ego, Zero, who committed the crime. And Sky's question, which is very astute, is, okay, well, you already took a plea, and part of that plea was you were of sound mind to take the plea. But now you're going to say that you're dealing with all of these split personalities and Zero, in fact, did it. How does that work out? Well, a couple of things at play here. One, we've talked about this before when you talk about the difference between insanity and competency. Being of sound mind is essentially asking, are you competent to take the plea? Here today, as you sit here, are you of sound mind that we can accept your plea of guilt? What he's saying, though, is almost like a insanity plea. That at the time, though, when the crime was committed, I was not of sound mind. I was Zero, and Zero did this. But they're not even really doing that. It's not even an insanity plea. It's a mitigation defense. They're trying to say, listen, ladies and gentlemen, he's going to prison for the rest of his life. But don't put him to death, because we're also saying he's got mental issues. And don't put this person who thought he was another human being, another Zero, whatever Zero is, don't put that person to death. My sincerest hope and prayers are that they do decide to put him to death. None of that will bring back Athena, but I would think it's a miscarriage of justice if you're going to have the death penalty on the books to not apply it to a monster like this. Then again, if he's not put to death, I hope that he is put into general population where the prison guards are easily distracted. So in any case, thank you so much, Sky, for the excellent question out of Miami, Florida. All right, everybody. It's that time. Don't cry. You can hold it together. This is our last question. Who is bringing us home today?
Happy Sunday, Fundy. Joshua, Tiffany, Kaylin, our 5 fabulous mods. Hey, Beth Nancy. CC family and guests. Alicia K. Mayo, Humboldt, Tennessee. All right, Joshua, you're covering 2 weeks of Sunday Fundy, so I'm going to throw you an easy, let's say inside baseball question. Exactly where is your lovely bride, Miss Tiffany, at when you are on a live and at home? Y'all have a great rest of the day. Happy Sunday Funday, and y'all don't forget to hit that like and share and subscribe. It's all free. Thanks. Bye.
AKM from Humboldt, Tennessee. What a better way to finish our day here. Thank you so much, Alicia K. Mayo, for always calling in and all your support, putting Humboldt, Tennessee on the map. AKM wants to know, where is Tiffany while we're doing these lives? Tiffany stands right over here and keeps a watchful eye on me to make sure that I don't take any unnecessary breaks. She's constantly just saying, get it moving, Ritter. Actually, no, that you could go ahead and make that bigger. This is what I'm staring at the entire time we're doing a live. And you can see down there in the little boxes, there's Tiffany and there's Kaylin. And that's why I can't hear them, but I can kind of see them. And that's why I'm saying that, if I'm doing something and they're waving at me or screaming or pointing or mouthing something at me, we've got to figure out a better way of coordinating our communication. And that's why I've heard some people say, why is Josh on his phone? I am not playing Candy Crush, and I'm not checking my Instagram. We are texting because it's the only way that we can communicate to say, hey, did you get that question? Hey, do we have this picture? Hey, could you find this video? It's all the behind the scenes production that goes into Sunday Fun Day from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. Please like and share, everybody. Thank you so much. AKM for asking that question. She's mouthing, keep it moving, Ritter. She is. She's saying nobody wants to hear this nonsense. Get to the next question. 6 more to 800. That's how it's set up. That's how all the magic is made, is right there on that screen. Do you still play Candy Crush? No, I haven't played that in quite a while. I don't play anything. I've got kids. I've got kids and basically 2 full-time jobs. And I work and then I hibernate. And then I work and then I hibernate. It's not even sleeping. It's like I turn off, essentially. I don't even really sleep. Kaylin, 84% is passing grade. I kind of expected more from you. We just want to see you apply yourself, and you can get that up into the 90s. All right. For the mods, reaching 700. Thank you so much, Ann Potter. That's very sweet of you. Derek Sherman, happy crewversary, says, hey, Josh, just wanted to say that I really hope with all of Sheriff Nanos' lack of leadership didn't set the table for potential defense attorneys. It could. Listen, I'm not gonna say it won't have a chance. If they ever catch somebody, and listen, if we're dealing with that problem, I'd rather deal with that problem than what we got now. I would rather deal with the problem of what a defense attorney is going to do than the problem of where is this person who did this and where is she. If we're dealing with defense attorneys, that means they've caught somebody, and God bless, and I hope that they do that soon. Thank you, Derek Sherman. All right, Wendy Joan, thank you so much for supporting the mods with coffees. The Crafty RN, thank you for supporting us all with a membership. Let's do some quick announcements. One, I'm going to tell you about a brand new website called thecourtroomconfidential.com. On thecourtroomconfidential.com, you will find the 3 M's. 1, messages. If you enjoyed listening to the messages here today, but you're thinking to yourself, I want to ask a question, I want to know something, he didn't answer this, you can go to thecourtroomconfidential.com and click on ask a question, leave us a message, and we will answer that at the next Sunday Fun Day. 2, membership. If you saw everybody receiving these gifted memberships, but you didn't get one and you say, I want to join up, well, then you should go to thecourtroomconfidential.com and click on become a member. Find out about all the benefits. SDC 1225 did that. Be like SDC. Misty Valdez just did that. Be like Misty Valdez. She Bear TC just became a YouTube member. So can you. And MoxBox84 just became a YouTube member. And so can you. Georgia Mama just became a YouTube member. So can you. And there we go. So you've got plenty of people to be on board with you. Mix Firebirds just said, has been a member for 10 months. Happy Crewversity. If Kale Chips needs an assistant to do all the things, I'm available. There you go. Then we'll add Mix Firebird to the boxes staring at me and screaming at me and pointing at things and mouthing things I can't understand. Ms. Annie K has been a member for 9 months. Says, congrats, Best Nancy. Gratitude and love to the CC fam. Completely agree. We're very blessed. What did you miss? Well, earlier this week, we had the weekly roundup. This was on Friday, right? Friday with our friend. Oh, pardon me. I missed my final M. Merch. If you click on the shop, you can not only find yourself where this beautiful shirt is available. Kaylin likes to call it Chalky Mint. I think it's something else, though. Is it Chalky Mint? Oh, it is Chalky Mint. Therapist, says it's called Subpoena Colada. That is good. Subpoena Colada. Can we make that the name of this thing? That is so clever. Subpoena Colada. I love that. Very good, therapist. See you in court. That's good. You're not going to pass. You're not going to top Subpoena Colada. Key lime pie green. I do love key lime pie. Aquatol. I get it. Aquatol. That's good too. Subpoena Colada. I said you couldn't top it, but maybe testicle teal takes the cake. If you want a shirt, if you want a mug or pajama pants, airport approved, or tumblers or sweatshirts, or what else do we got? Zip up hoodies, unzip hoodies, pullover hoodies, quarter zips. We've got you all covered. Please check it out at the shop at thecourtroomconfidential.com, and hats. Okay, now what did you miss? Well, you missed on Friday. We had the weekly roundup. We had 2 special guests. First of all, James Gagliano, pardon me, I almost mispronounced his name. James Gagliano, one of my favorites. You guys really enjoyed hearing from James. It was his first time being on the channel. And another first timer for Courtroom Confidential, Matt Johnson, formerly of Court TV, that you guys are all fans of as well. So please check out that episode. We talked a lot about Lynette Hooker, Shanna Gardner, Lindsay Clancy. Also, the weekly rap sheet. This is the show that I do alongside Paul Morrow and Donna Rotuno over on Fox Nation. We had an entire episode about Rex Heuermann because we were covering it live as he was taking the plea and during the press conference. So please check that out. And I know to watch us on Fox Nation, you've got to subscribe. Well, Fox is running a special right now that if you join up, you can get a week for free. So I encourage you all to check that out if you're not a subscriber already. Then stay tuned. Monday, that is tomorrow, we will have a new special guest for our Monday night special, and that is going to be Dave Ehrenberg. And what is the name of this kid? I forgot his name already. There is a new update. This is the case that we've been following closely and has a lot of you losing your minds. Jesse Mack Butler. He is back in court on Monday. So we're going to be talking about that with Dave Ehrenberg, amongst other things as well. Oh, Alicia Cameo says, thanks, Josh, for the ad-free lives. And thank you for bringing that up. Yes, it is our goal, as long as we could possibly do it, to never have a live that is interrupted by YouTube. Yes, maybe we'll tell you to go subscribe for this. Maybe we'll tell you to go sign up for that. But we're never going to allow YouTube to interrupt a live stream as long as we can help it. And the best way that we can do that is through all of your support. So we are very gracious for that support. And then we got CrimeCon coming up, May 29th through 31st. Boy, we're only, what did Court Daniel say? 40-something days away, 44 days away. It is coming up 47 days away. It is coming up quick. See that? That's my crack team giving me hand signals in the background. 47 days until CrimeCon. Here's what I'm going to do for you. If you still haven't bought a ticket, I'm going to give you 10% off if you enter the word courtroom, all in caps, all one word. And if you would like to show up wearing some Courtroom Confidential gear, well, then we've got you covered there too, because we co-branded it along with CrimeCon. I just love this. This is one of the things I'm so proud of, is this t-shirt. I think it's so cool. And we're going to try to do it every year for CrimeCon, another new fun one. Oh, look at that. Sarcasm says Fox Nation has a discount for military members, past and present. Very cool. So there you go. Sub Sue has been a member for 13 months, says, what a great job, Josh, Tiff, and crew. Well, thank you very much, Sub Sue. We appreciate you. All right. That's all I got for you. You guys are all fantastic. Oh, boy. Happy birthday to me. I'm late, but at least I'm here. Love spending part of my day with y'all. Happy birthday, Wendy Turner. Getting it in right in the final seconds. Appreciate you, Wendy, and happy birthday. And thank you, Jenna Bag, for the super sticker. Appreciate you. Crystal Anderson has been a member for 1 month. Love Sunday Funday. Thank you, Josh. We love having you, Crystal. Zarkasm has been a member for 11 months, says, always so lucky and blessed to be part of this amazing family. You guys are so nice and fantastic. Sarge is on now. Go check it out, says Nate Dogg. Sorry. Which means that I got to get out here so you guys can go watch the Sarge. So one final thank you again to Joe Giacalone, the aforementioned Sarge, for helping us out with our phone a friend today. And big shout out and thank you to Afton, Sonia, Kathy, Therapist and Best Nancy for being part of the best mod squad on the interwebs. Kaylin, you're the best. Thank you as always. Blackwater says bye-bye. And Tiffany, you are the best thing that's ever happened to me. Take care, everybody. We'll see you here tomorrow night. Bye-bye.